Whenever you are using RabbitMQ as queuing mechanism in your system, this is very important thing you should know while designing your system. This is called prefetch count. So what happens actually is you have a queue and then you will get attached the consumer to that queue and queue will send messages to the consumers. So what is prefetch count is? Prefetch count is whenever queue will establish a connection with consumer, how many messages it will send in one handshake. So suppose prefetch count if you have set as 10, then what it will do, it will try to create a connection. Suppose connection takes 50 milliseconds. It will deliver all those 10 messages to consumer, and then the closing and acknowledgement and all those things will take 50 milliseconds. Now let's try to understand that how it is important. So what will happen is that suppose your consumer takes 1 millisecond to process one message and you have set a prefetch count as 1. So what will happen is that 1 millisecond 50 millisecond got consumed in sending message and 50 millisecond got consumed in closing that connection, and then only you have sent one message which got consumed in 1 millisecond. So overall time was 101 millisecond and only one message got processed. So better would be send at least some 30-40 messages so that it is on compare with the time getting consumed in establishing connection. So now how we can set this? What we can do is whenever this is set at the channel level. So what we can do is whenever we are creating connection with the broker URL, we get the at the channel level with the connection dot. Whenever we create the channel, we can set prefetch count as anything whatever we want. So what will happen is that if you have consumers who has resources available and it processes messages very fast, so what you should do is you should keep prefetch count on the higher side. What will happen is that your consumer has resources, even if you send higher prefetch count, it will be able to proceed. When your consumer has low resources and if you send the higher count, then what will happen is that your consumer will get blocked and no connection will get established with the queue further because it's totally busy processing those. So if your consumer has less resources, then try to have prefetch count as less. Now comes the point is what will be the default prefetch count for RabbitMQ. Default prefetch count for RabbitMQ is it has unlimited one. So what will happen is that as much your consumer can consume, it will send those many messages. Now comes one more optimization at the level of number of consumers. So suppose if you have one queue with which you have too many consumers attached and they all are pretty fast, what will happen is that when you have too many consumers, then what you should do is you should keep it at the low level. Let's try to understand why. Because what will happen is that if it is too high and you have too many consumers, then suppose 50 messages are sent to this guy, then there are very less messages available here, and this guy was pretty fast also. See, he processed all the messages and again sent the acknowledgement. By the time it sent, you again got 50, so again it will be sent to the same consumer. So what you should do is you should divide it into, suppose if you have 5, you should divide it into 10. What will happen is that 10 messages will get served to all the consumers. When you have very less consumers, then what you should do is you should keep your prefetch count at the higher level. What will happen with this is that consumers are less, only 1 and 2 consumers are there, you have got 100 messages. So suppose you can keep 50, you send again, less 50 is left, you can send it. They'll keep their time and keep processing blah blah, and then when they will send acknowledgement till the time. Suppose if you have got 150 messages, again you can process 50 messages. But if you keep it very low, then what will happen is that your as processor are not able to pretty fast and their number is also less. So what will happen is that suppose 10 you have keep sending to all the consumer, then ultimately what will happen is that a lot of time will go in the turnaround time or the traveling time or the network time. So what two things we have learned is that if your consumer has higher resources, try to have high prefetch count. If resources are less, try to have low prefetch count. If you have too many consumers, then again try to have low prefetch count so that it can be distributed evenly to all the consumers. And if you have very less consumers, then try to have high prefetch count so that less time goes in the network traveling time.